When did you first grow curious about the paranormal? Dare you dig deeper? You are listening to House of Asher.
And welcome to the House of Asher. I am your host, Steve Asher. And, it's funny because this is sort of a momentous occasion, and for a couple of different reasons. First of all, we are up to episode 95 for those who have been following the show before. And this is technically would be show 1 for those that will be listening on Paranormal UK Radio. That's www.paukradio.com. And if you're listening to this is probably on Monday, April 8th at between 9 and 10 GMT time. So I want to make sure to welcome all of you, and I hope you enjoy the show. I definitely want your input, so please go to steveasher.com. That's basically the name Steve with 2 E's, asher.com. And that's where you can find out about the show. That's where you can find out about my writing. That's where you can find out about my stamp collecting. No, I don't collect stamps. But anyway, do a lot of other interesting kind of quirky stuff. So I hope you enjoy it. And welcome to my international audience. This is a real blessing. I appreciate the guys at Paranormal UK Radio taking me on. And I hope they're proud of me. So what we're going to be talking about tonight, I'm actually going to have a lady on in just one moment who's dealt with a lot of quirky things, the things that go bump in the night. Some of them are big, some of them are small, some of them are very hairy, some of them are bald. I'm one of them. I'm very bald. So there's that. And if you go to strangerealms.net, you can find out more about the lady I'm getting ready to bring on air right about now, Miss Robyn MoonShadow. Hey, Robyn, welcome to the show.
Hi, Steve. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely, and I thank you again for being on. It's been kind of a back and forth because I know you've had a whole lot of different things, and you've been going out and exploring all this stuff. As some of the people know, or some don't know, because again we have a new audience tonight, that most of my background was in law enforcement and paranormal investigations, and mainly in the Western Kentucky part, in Southern American states, and also in Thailand, where I learned a lot about ghost culture and stuff. But you are also extremely active and extremely well versed in what you do. Can you give kind of a Reader's Digest version of who you are and what you're about?
I live in Ontario, Canada, which is closer to New York if you need a reference. I started doing some paranormal research and my crypto research when I was very young, about 5 years old. None of it has ever scared me because, it was. And if I couldn't read a book that I brought home, one of my siblings or my mom would read it for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so like I said, none of this has ever scared me because I'm just too curious.
Now, see, I get that, but, and don't get me wrong. Again, like I said, working in the prison systems, going into haunted houses and haunted asylums and whatnot, that's one thing. But, a large 8 or 9 foot tall cryptid that can kind of pull your arms out, makes me think of the Wookiee from Star Wars. That's something different, so my hat's off to you, so.
When I was younger, I only ever wanted to be a veterinarian. And so I have a background in animal sciences. And when I made my first report about our local lake monster, it came off it as more of a report. So I went and I took a course in short story journalism writing.
No. So you kind of...
Then I'm able to write better.
Wow. So you kind of come into it with the sort of not Mulder, like Scully kind of vibe from X-Files, where you're like very clinical and very, you know what I'm saying, where you kind of went into it too scientifically, and which, if it's a thing, some people would argue that, but you definitely want to have a little bit that approachability with people and being able to open up and show people things, because sometimes some people, that's just not them. I'm not super specific and scientific in a lot of my research. Definitely I want to try to use the scientific method, but like when you guys go, what's some of the things that you do in regards of your researching? Is there certain types of tack gear that you take? Is there certain, what is sort of your what is your ritual? Because everyone has a ritual, be it a religious thing, be it a hunting thing, be it a whatever. How you make your coffee, what's your ritual in this?
Sometimes we'll just, especially with me, because I'd say about 90% of the time I do my research alone, especially when I go out into the field, and it means go out into the woods. I go alone, but I do team up with other people, and that's mainly in America. I have a great team member named Dwight, and if I can't get some research I need, then he'll get it for me. And he's a great squatcher. He's a great researcher. So I'm very lucky that way. Now, like I said, here I'm pretty much alone. I know of only 4 other people here in Ontario that I would trust to actually go out with. The closest one to me is an hour away, and we're setting something up for later in the summer.
Wow. Well, and that's the thing. Pardon me, guys. Sometimes you have this sort of I don't know if it's necessarily true in the squatching community, because I'm not as much of a squatcher. I've encountered little quirky things and noises off in the woods and stuff, but I've never went out and did a squatch hunt. But it seems like, especially say maybe in ghost hunting or whatever, be it teams, or be it maybe paranormal shows, or be it whatever, there's this very much that competitive type of like I got to get the story first. I got to be that first one there. I got to be the not so much what's the quality of my journalism, or what's the how am I handling myself in the field? What's my behavior in the field? Is it an end result, or is it doing a proper research and gathering information? So the fact that you're able to work with somebody, that actually speaks a lot about both your characters, because again, sometimes people kind of act like they're in primary school sometimes on this. I don't know what it is, because like I was telling you before off air the other day, most people that do this kind of, we're like, well, we're enlightened, we're woke, we're seeking, but then you kind of get muddled up in some of that. So the fact that you're able to do that's wonderful.
I will go out with, like if they have a video, I'll watch it to see how well they research or how well their behavior is, because it's just me, and I find if somebody is too arrogant, that I won't get along with them, because I approach my work scientifically, but I'm also open-minded about it.
Right. Well,
because as soon as you think that something is this way or that way, you're set and you're not open to anything.
Right. Well, no, I mean, once you think you've figured it out, short of testing it and retesting it and retesting it and getting the exact same result, it's a speculation and it's a theory at best. That was the thing we were kind of joking off air that that you're Canadian, and have you ever heard of a guy by the name of Richard Serrett?
I have not.
Okay, great guy. I'm going to go ahead and pitch his show because he's a good guy. Sometimes he'll fill in on like Coast to Coast, and he does like Conspiracy Unlimited. Good guy. He's had me on. I'll once we're off the air, I'll try to get you in touch with him if you'd like to be on his show as well. But how do you find like the cryptids in your area as opposed to, say, American cryptids? Is the American cryptids more rude? Do they leave? Is that kind of ugly American thing? Are they going around like leaving trash everywhere or what? I'm making a joke, but is there a difference in maybe aggressiveness, or are they pretty much the same across the board?
Oh, I love this question. Because like I said, when I went to become a vet and have a background in animal science, my focus was on behavior. So I love this question. Yes, and they do act differently depending on where they are. The ones that are here, I find, are more shy. They will stay away from us more, where we'll find the ones in America are a little bit more inquisitive. I have a friend of mine who puts up trail cams just like I do, and they will mess around with his trail cam. They'll put sticks in front of it, and they'll.
That's funny.
If it's not a good tree, they'll shove the tree over and then cover the cam with leaves and sticks.
Well,
and he told me, and I just started laughing. I'm like, oh, they're messing
man.
around with you. I love this.
Well, you sent me, and I should probably say, people can go to, again, steveeasher.com, and I will have these photos up, and subscribe, and then you can access the photos and things and leave comments. And there was one where it was kind of partially blocked, and I'm like, did something put, what is that? And now it makes sense. They were blocking the cameras. That's funny. I mean, and also shows the intellect, because I think a lot of people think of Gigantopithecus, the ancient, actual large ape that existed a very long time ago. Again, I'm not an anthropologist, so my dates are off. I apologize. But when you have something like that, obviously it's spatially aware, and it sort of knows when to come out, when not to come out. I've heard so many people say, if you go, don't be snapping a camera, because they don't like that. And people used to say, well, maybe they're thinking it's a gun. I'm like, I don't think it's that. I think they just know you're trying to get a picture of them. And so I don't know. I mean, do you feel that these are, because again, you talk about your animal research, that these are pure animal? Do you feel like they are maybe a hybrid of both, or do you feel like maybe they're a pan-dimensional type of creature, something that can move between the seen and the unseen? Because you hear like these things will just disappear like that. Where do you stand on that, or do you have any real theories on that?
When it was with Bigfoot, I don't believe that they're trans-dimensional or anything like that. They just know their woods. That they are so well camouflaged for something so big and hairy, and they can move so fast and silent. So yeah, I believe that they are a great ape. Now, when it comes to Gigantopithecus, there are two types that we know about: Gigantopithecus blackeye and Gigantopithecus, and I can't even pronounce the last one. I will try though. Ballisterinus, and I apologize if that's right. Now, with the last one, he is more like a Bigfoot. Now, Gigantopithecus was bigger and more. What they say is he was related to orangutan, and he was 9-10 feet tall, and he walked around on his knuckles.
Right.
But now new research is showing that he could stand up.
Well, that's the thing. It depends on, and it's so funny for someone who's outside of that world. In regards to funny, not like funny necessarily, haha, but it's peculiar. You'll have some people that's going, no, it's pure animal. It does this and that. It can't walk upright, and then people was like, well, that has to be a Gigantopithecus, and people say, no. Even the way the feet structure and the hand structure is so different, because apes and humans, have certain pads and bones differently, and then they go, well, no, a Bigfoot is something different than the Gigantopithecus, and then they're saying, well, maybe there's this unknown great ape, then there's also Bigfoot, and then I've even heard, I won't get too much into some of the like Dogman stuff, but like there are things that almost have a hybrid between a Bigfoot and a bear, which I'm thinking maybe it's just a bear, but I don't know. Have you encountered anything like that?
Well, I had my first Bigfoot sighting when I was 13 years old, and I was just out in the woods exploring. And this was actually very close to my parents' house, because I grew up on a farm, really way out in the country. We're talking about near a mountain, near a lake. And it was later in the day, and I was on my way home, and I was climbing through a barbed wire fence, and I had got it was one of those pom-pom socks that we all us girls used to wear in the 80s, and it got caught in one of the barbs on the fence, and I just turned to unhook my sock, and there he was, standing right in front of a tree. And I did get a good look at him. And, of course, it was a male. He looked like the Patty kind from the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Right.
And, yeah, he
Wow.
was about a 6-footer. Now, it took me, like I said, it was like slow motion, and it took my brain a minute to catch up. to what I was looking at and see, being a Métis First Nation, there wasn't any questions for us that Bigfoot was real. I just at that time never thought that I would ever see one because they were elusive. But yeah, he didn't want to hurt me or anything. He was just looking at me. I was looking at him, and he actually scratched his leg. And that kind of brought me to, and then I could hear my heart pounding in my ears.
Oh,
and I ripped my sock out of the barbed wire, and that pom-pom was probably still hanging there. And then I ran for home. And now I regret it years later because I could have just stood and stared at him for hours. But it scared me so bad that every time the dog barked, I thought he was coming to get me, even though in my head I know that he wouldn't. And my bedroom was on the ground floor, so yeah,
wow.
Like pull the curtains closed and everything, yeah. Well, and then my second sighting was when I was in my 30s, and I was with my brother and sister, and we were back just in the woods. Like we do this every so often, where like I have a large family. There's 5 of us kids, and we'll just go for walks in the woods for whatever reason because both my parents are gone, and we just do that sometimes. And we were up on a hill, and below the hill was a creek, and I hadn't been in this area before, and it was again. Sorry, that.
Oh, that's okay.
Close to my parents' old house, and I went to look at this hollowed out log and take a picture of it because this tree was huge and it was just hollowed out. And I just happened to look over because I had a flash out of the corner of my eye. Right. And it was a juvenile Bigfoot, and this one was a ginger color. It had come down to the other side of this creek and was drinking water from his hand, putting his hand into the water and getting a drink. And I'm staring at it for a second, and then I'm like, come and look at this. And no camera or nothing, of course. And they missed it, of course, but it had darted off into the reeds and into the bushes. Like they saw the bushes move where it was.
Right.
But they didn't see it.
Well, let me ask you this. Which, first of all, my mind went immediately to, well, you didn't have a camera. Well, that probably helped facilitate the fact that it gave you a little bit more time to see it because it knew that you weren't a threat in any way of exposing it or hurting it or whatever. Now, when you said it was red, are we talking like fire engine red, or are we talking more like a dark lager, kind of an amber color?
Like a ginger color of red, like an orange.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like an orangutan color.
Okay.
Yeah, he was actually kind of fuzzy. I don't think that he knew that I was there at all.
So it was just going about its business, and you just happened to catch it.
Yeah, which was lucky. I wish my brother and sister could have seen it though, but it was gone in a flash.
Wow. It's so crazy. Now I knew you'd mentioned something about giants as well.
Oh yeah. I've been researching giants for quite a while, and through, of course, my Native American roots. With me, I am, my ancestors were Native American, and my grandmother came to Canada. And here we are called Métis First Nation.
Okay, and I wonder, well, I was just going to say, I wonder, because you hear so many Native American, or not Native, sorry, pardon me, just Native in general, because, obviously, the Cree Nation and all this just kind of traveled all throughout the northern hemisphere stuff. And do you feel that at one time that certain tribes kind of lived in harmony with these creatures, or at least wasn't, chasing them out in the woods with guns and pickups and all that sort of stuff?
With giants, it depends on the type of giants that you're dealing with. Now, we're not talking biblical giants. What we're talking about is both the Native American giants and the red-haired giants. Now, we find that we did live in harmony. Well, some tribes lived in harmony with some of these giants because they all weren't cannibals. But some of them were cannibals. And like the ones in Mammoth Cave, I know that's a bit of a more famous story. And it's a story that I've been hearing since I was a kid. It was passed down to me. So what we typically hear, there's a bit more to that story. As it was told to me, that the giants would come into these 4 different tribes during the night, and these things were huge, and they would just snatch people out of the teepees and take them back to their cave and eat them, because these ones were cannibals. And it always just amazes me when I hear the story that these things were so big and they could move so silently. And after a while, they got tired of being attacked by these giants, and they chased them into the cave, and they killed them and burned them alive. Now, years and years later, a couple of miners were digging for bat guano and found these giant bones in this particular cave.
Well, that was something I was going to bring up. Here in the part I'm in of Kentucky, it's western Kentucky. It's kind of the far right of Kentucky. But there's a cave system, very large cave system that you may have heard of, called Mammoth Cave, and it's a very, very huge system that runs through several states, and actually runs under my town of Princeton, Kentucky, where I'm at. But there had been stories, especially when people were first really kind of digging in and hollowing out places and making roads and wagon paths and whatnot, of people finding, like you said, laid out giants. And sometimes it was more prehistoric, and they're wrapped, are coated in sort of a red ochre type dye. And then sometimes they would find them maybe with large spears and laid out in regalia of that you would do for a king or somebody of high renown, or, and greatly thought of. It wasn't like, it's not what you think of in regards of a beast or a monster or a cannibal, for God's sakes. But what had you found in regards of that? Would that have been more the red-headed giants, or would that have been more connected with just another race altogether?
It would be both. With the Native American giants that we find in the mound, they have all kinds of goodies buried with them too, and they are buried a specific way. Either head and feet are laid a certain way, or they are buried standing up.
Wow, see, and that's what's so really strange about it, is that you hear everyone says, oh well, and I'm not going to get biblical about stuff, but oh well, they talk about giants and they talk about dragons and they talk about witches, and it's like, well, it's allegory for this and that, or it's some way to kind of explain, someone with a pituitary issue and they're very tall and strong. But when you have people that's not even touching on that faith, I mean, you hear about giants just as much as you do Bigfoot and small people, which we'll get into in a minute, talking about like the hobbits and the I believe it was called the Ebu Gogo. Am I doing that right?
Yes. Okay. Yes, that's right.
Wow, first one I got right. Usually I butcher that.
You did.
The rest of them I'm going to stink at. But like culture-wise, did they, like, say giants in China, or giants in Russia, or giants in Zimbabwe or something? Were there different takes on it, and maybe they have different attributes? Did they maybe have different weaknesses? Which I don't know if that would tie into mythos, or if that would just tie into their particular genetic makeup. Have you heard anything?
Yes, to all of that. Yes, to all of those questions. The giants have been everywhere. Now, when it comes to the biblical reference of Nephilim, not all giants were called Nephilim. You see, Nephilim was a family name. So Goliath's name would have been Goliath Nephilim. It's just that he was the most popular, so everybody refers to every giant in the Bible as Nephilim.
Now,
but we also see giants that are in all the holy books.
Now, did this tie into, and the only reason because I was raised in Western Kentucky, so that was like, a bad, your mom's going to make you go to church. I remember like talking about the cities of Gog and Egog, and they talked about giant men with, 6 fingers and multiple rows of teeth, which most people thought that was all myth until they did find skeletal remains where it had these large humanoids with multiple rows of teeth, 6 fingers, 6 toes. Like you said again,
yes,
in Canada, in America.
That's true, and Yes, and that's true. And again, with these 6 fingers, 6 toes, it seems to be a genetic anomaly associated with particular tribes of these giants.
Wow. Well, you know.
But I lost you there for a second.
No, I was sitting there. I was listening to what you were saying. I'm sorry.
And we find sometimes with Bigfoot too, that sometimes they'll have an extra toe.
So do you think there's a connection maybe between the giants and the Bigfoot, or is that just, dolphins have flippers and this and that? These other things have flippers, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah, I don't believe that they're the same thing. Although I know that John Green, before he died, was researching giants as opposed to Bigfoot, because he was finding tracks that were 2 feet long. And he says these are way too big to be Bigfoot. And when he looked into it further, he found that people were seeing hairy men, not Bigfoot, hairy men that wore clothes. And that's of course, that's up in British Columbia and in some parts of America.
Well, and that's the funny thing, and I should probably mention to the listener, again, if you go to stevieasher.com, and you can see some of these photos, and they're pretty amazing, because I know that you'd sent me some. Like I said, it was quite large, and there were some that was very, very small, delicate looking, not what I would have thought of in regards of a cryptid. And I do want to also mention, please make sure to go to strangerealms.net. I always like to try to make sure to put that in a couple times during the show so people know that, and make sure to check it out, and make sure to continue listening to Paranormal UK Radio. But in regards of the little tiny wee fellas, as it were, because I knew we'd mentioned the Indonesian hobbits, the Ibu Gogo. We touched a little bit on the Wedgies, and the one that I cannot pronounce, the Nemokas. Am I saying that right?
Oh, the Yunwi, the Cherokee little people.
That must be it, because I can't pronounce things. See, I told you.
Well, so even I have a problem pronouncing some of these things, and luckily I have a lot of Native brothers and sisters who can try to help me.
Well, let me ask you then. I mean, obviously, these are different type of communities, and obviously these are, they're people. They have their own culture and all this. How do you kind of separate, like say, okay, well, the hobbits are like this, the Pukwudgies are like this? Can you kind of give like a little bit of a explanation for that? Because there's some people that have never heard of these.
Well, we call them proto-pygmies, otherwise known as little people. There are several different types. There are the hairy little kind that are often mistaken for juvenile Bigfoot, but we know Bigfoot don't wear shoes. And I've been lucky enough that I found tracks. Now, 2 pictures that I sent you. One was from my research friend in America, and that took that early last year around February in the Cherokee National Forest. And mine was taken this year, early winter this year. And what they are is you're seeing little footprints of 2 different types. What is a Cherokee little person, which is a very tiny native, and they look like little First Nations people. And the one that I took is a gnome.
Wow.
You can see the differences even in the way they walk with the track. Mine has a bit of a waddle to it, where his is just straight walking like a person. But yeah, there are several different types. There are gnomes. Leprechauns are part of the gnome family. So there's gnomes and there's leprechauns, and there's the Dewandee in Mexico, and that's also a gnome, but they're little troublemakers.
Right.
And then there's red caps. They're also gnomes. And they like to harass people. They're what I consider the anti-gnome, because they could care less about anybody and anything. And like the Dewandee, they cause havoc, as they will throw broken glass at you. It's just anti-gnome behavior. For what we know about gnomes, they love animals and they'll help animals. And then we have the little tiny native-looking ones, and there are several different types of those. And then we have the Pukwudgies, which is probably the worst of all the little people, and I'm constantly warning people about them. They are a gray color, and they will kill you as quick as look at you. This goes back, the hatred towards humans goes back to Moshop the giant, where the people loved Moshop the giant, and he was a good giant. He was a bit lazy, but they loved him regardless because he was good to them and he looked after them. And his wife was a little person. She was a Mimi Goeski. She was a little native person. And as the story goes, the Paukradio got jealous. Now, I should mention, they're only 2 or 3 feet tall, and they are gray color. And they're often mistaken for trolls, but trolls are different. So they got jealous of the people loving Moshop more. And when Moshop went off away to do something, they started causing havoc in the village and killing people. It does lead to that the Paukradio were eating people, but it's very loose, so you can interpret it however you like. So the people went to talk to Granny Squint, who, again, like I said, was a little person. She was a Mimi Goeski. And she had got her 2 sons to go take care of them. Now, in the stories, sometimes the Paukradio kills them. 2 of the sons and 1 is left alive, and sometimes it kills both the sons. So when Moshop comes back, the giant, they go and they take care of the Paukradios, and he's a giant, so he throws them all over and stomps them, and they destroy as many of them as they can. But some of them come back, and when they come back, they're worse than ever.
So it's almost like you think of like the old movie, the Gremlins, where the more that happens to them, and the more that's they kind of go through, they turn around and they become something more malevolent and more concentrated evil. Something that I was thinking about too is, because I was thinking of like brownies and sprites and all those different collection of wee people. And when I say wee people, I'm not being, curt or anything. That's just what I was, my grandparents, being German, they talked about small little creatures. Like you hear the old stories about the guys would cobble shoes and whatnot, but if you were bad to them, you had heck to pay, because they were very very protective of their pride. They were prideful and didn't want to be messed with. But it's so funny because most people nowadays will think, you think of like Tinkerbell or something, or you think of some cutesy little deal. I mean, but if you go back into like Grimm's and pre-Grimm's stories, they were pretty dark, and even touching on into the elf realm and all that, and being spirited away and all that. Now, do any of these creatures, because since I brought up fairies and things, I know like if they entertain you and whatever, and say if you go with them to see their world, you cannot eat anything, you cannot drink anything, or you will be stuck there for like 7 years.
No, I haven't come across any like that. But the little people from Germany are also a type of gnome, and they're called kobolds. But it is a common theme throughout all of these intelligent little people that you don't make them mad. You show them respect. And when it comes to brownies, they are like the bachelors of gnome society. They like to be left alone, to sit in their corner of your house. And you can feed them, but don't offer them clothes, because they dress in rags. And if you did offer them clothes, you'll insult them and they'll leave. I also know of one gnome story, and because there's different types of gnomes. There's house gnomes, and then there's the farmer gnomes, and each one of them do something different, like house gnome or a domestic gnome, and everybody seems to want to get them into their house. But the one story tells of on Christmas Eve, you were supposed to give your gnome a treat, which is usually porridge with the butter on top. Now, the farmer's daughter thought that she would play tricks on this particular gnome and put the butter at the bottom. It made him so mad, he went and killed their best cow.
That escalated quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah.
And when he found the the butter at the bottom of the bowl, he went and stole the neighbor's best cow and brought it back.
Yikes. Well, and you hear people, which, I mean, depends on who you talk to. I know a lot of people that are very much still in the vein of, just because we don't see nature creatures, as I would call it, things that are more in tune with nature and the natural world, doesn't mean they're not there. I know there's still quite a few people throughout the world who believe in we folk. Mm-hmm. I myself will go, all right, let's say this. It's like, well, hey, Steve, I hear that you might, I don't know, whatever. You may be closing on that house you wanted to get. And I would go, well, knock on wood. Just that simple. But people would knock on a tree as sort of a kind of a respect thing, and, it goes way back. But that has stayed with us forever, and I think it'll probably stay with us forever after that. There's so much stuff that's tied in with what people consider superstition and folklore, but there's a lot of stuff that we thought didn't exist. People swore up and down, oh no, this animal's extinct or whatever, and then they find it, maybe in the deep sea, or they'll find it in the deep jungle, or, well, this creature can't live here because there was no land bridge, and boom, you find some sort of creature there, or at least skeletal remains. We don't know anywhere near as much as we think we do as a people. Humans tend to, and I'm making a blanket statement because I'm a human, as far as you know, that, we are on top of it. We are the bee's knees, and we got it figured out. And, for the most part, it's like a little kid running around in his mom or, dad's shoes, whatever, playing grown up. We're still fumbling in the dark. And it's so funny, though, because like you said, you do solid research. The photography that you do and the going out and setting this up, to me, is as professional as anyone doing a excavation of burial mounds or whatever. But because it's not considered and I'm doing air quotes here, nobody can see me, mainstream, things get pushed away, things get laughed at. And I know some of it is because it makes people uncomfortable, because imagine if, like, someone told you, and you were very straight-laced, 9-to-5 person, hey, all that different stuff that, you hear about elves and fairies and whatnot, and Bigfoots and giants and all that, yeah, they're real. We don't see them much. Maybe they are in the earth. Maybe they're, in the hollow earth or something, if you want to go to that extreme. But I don't know if people could handle it.
Yeah, and I find a lot of that. I saw a little person when I was 9 or 10 years old, and he was green, and he lived in between the walls of my aunt and uncle's house. And I remember that I told my mom what I had saw. Like, my cousins knew that he was there, because he would steal their treats off the floor, like, candy bars, and he'd even steal their soft drinks. Now, he was a green color, and I found out later through my research that he's called a Naimako, and they're very rare. But, yeah, it is exactly like that. I told my mom, and I expected her to believe me, and she didn't, but my aunt believed me. And I remember being so upset, that, why don't you believe me? So it is like that, so it's a shock. Now, being brought up Métis, like I said, we just automatically assume that these things are real, like not going like really far-fetched way out and believing every single thing that we're told. Because for us, if something is a myth, that's a myth. If something is a legend, it's real. And with stories, it's not just always allegory. Like, I've read some great stories that are allegories. A story about an Inuit heard some noises, and he found a little window in a tree. And he started watching two little people dancing around and playing instruments. And before he knew it, 2 years had passed. Now, that's allegory for don't be peeking in people's windows and minding your own business.
Yeah,
but I mean, that's a great story. And again, then we have stories that come from Alaska. A man who was out on his snowmobile, and this is a true story. This is an allegory. This is true. And he was out hunting on his snowmobile, and he found a boy right in the middle of nowhere. Just found him. He was just there. There weren't any tracks around. And he talked to the little boy, and the little boy was just bewildered. He just couldn't even talk. So the little boy was from the man's village, so he took him back home. And later on that night, we find out that the little people had taken this boy and taken him into the mountain. And he had met a girl that had disappeared quite a few years before. And she was still a little girl.
Wow.
And
so
now the boy
literally
is a
did not
teenager,
age.
and he still has problems dealing with it.
Well, you also
Sorry,
hear
go ahead.
stories. Well, no, I apologized. Train of thought comes by. If I don't grab it, I have to find another ticket. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, it makes me think of the old, what would they call it? Like pretenders, like the old doppelganger things, where someone would come, they would switch a fairy baby or a whatever particular wee people it was out with a human child, and you wouldn't know unless, you would have to do something. Sometimes you have to do something very silly, like put a frying pan on your head, and then it'll start just laughing hysterically and slapping its leg, its knee, and just goof on, like it's like an infant. It shouldn't be walking around laughing. Or you have to do something like, I don't know, just something really kind of messed up. Sometimes they said you'd have to threaten to throw it into the fireplace, back in those days. And then of course it's going to go, get your hands off me, and then boom boom starts showing its true self. But a lot of times people just didn't know until long after the child had grown up, and if they were lucky, maybe they encountered the child, if they were ever able to switch it back. I knew there was some sort of, more or less like a bargain or a thing you have to do. There's rules to this. It's not random.
Yeah.
But well, let me ask you this, because like I said, we're at about the 40 minute mark. What is this about giant wolves? What is that?
Oh yes. Here in Canada, we call them the Wahila, and I found in America they're called the Shunka Warikin. Now, through the descriptions, they are the same. And I know that a lot of other cryptozoologists think that they are bear dogs. The description isn't quite right. A bear dog is not really a dog, and it's not really, doesn't really fit the description. But when I was in North Carolina in February, one of the areas that some of these giant wolves have been sighted, and I was lucky that I just looked down and found a track that was bigger than my hand. Now I know that the gray wolves get big, but this was even bigger than a gray wolf. Like I said, I was lucky.
Well, I knew that
when
one
I
time.
go on, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I was just saying, I knew that at one time you'd heard, you would hear of old stories of like dire wolves and things like that. So is this like a remnant or some sort of mutated version of a dire wolf? Which they were pretty big, but I don't think they're that big.
Right. This is what I say is a bear dog doesn't quite fit the description. Now, a dire wolf, nowadays what we think of is the giant Game of Thrones white wolf. But a dire wolf was built more like a barrel with legs. And this is what people are describing to me. I've had sightings close to me. And I actually went and looked at the location during the time that the woman thought she was just walking her dog down this area in a city close to where I live. And there it was. She says, I know what a wolf is. I know how big they are, but this was bigger than any wolf that I'd ever seen in my life, she said, and it was white. Now, during that time, like I said, it'd be like a metal scrapyard. So it'd be a great place for a wolf to have babies. And the next report that I got was further out of the same area, near a penitentiary where there was a farm. And he was a prisoner. He didn't tell me why he was in there. I'm sure it was something minor. But he was working on the farm, and he was going to bring the cows in. And he looked out in the field, and he saw it. And again, he said, I've never seen a wolf as big as this in my life. And
Wow.
both descriptions are that this is a white wolf, but it's huge.
Well, do you?
Well, he said it was built like a tank.
Good Lord. Do you feel that, or in your research rather, the behavioral patterns, okay, be it little people, be it all these different creatures that we've touched on, and definitely we'll talk some more of the other ones as well. You have a very wide breadth of knowledge. Um, do these things follow migrant patterns? Are any of them like salmon, which will return to their area in the river and spawn? And is there identifying markers that you can kind of go, well, by such and such age, Bigfoots tend to mate, or are they monogamous? Are they, just kind of going as it comes? I'm just kind of curious about that aspect of it, because obviously if you're having little Bigfoots, big Bigfoots are, hanging out.
What I find through my research, like I said, I've been doing this since I was 5 years old, and I recognize behaviors because I'm trained to do that. The big feet up here will migrate. Not all of them, but I find that there is a large reporting of sightings when other animals migrate here. So, October, November, some of them do migrate. And the majority of the migrations here go through Quebec. There's no other, into America. There is no other place here in my general area for them to go because of the St. Lawrence River. Now, during these times of the year, there are more Bigfoot reports in that area. Because like I said, the only place for them to cross because of the St. Lawrence River is up near Quebec. And this is when I find that there are more sightings there.
Wow.
So, yeah, I do believe that some of them migrate. Well, they live a nomadic lifestyle anyway. They live in family groups. What I have found is you always have two on the lookout, and it's what I call sentinel behavior. And will get wood knocked, and it warns the others that there are humans coming. And in October, when I was out doing some squatching, and like I said, I never expect anything when I go out. I always hope, but I never expect. So then this way, it's always a surprise to me. So I go out, and I had just gotten a high-powered pistol, pellet gun. And now that's for my own protection. I won't hurt an animal unless I have to. Now, I have fishers in this area. They are a cousin to a wolverine, and they can be quite vicious. So that's my main reason for carrying this high-powered pistol. It's not going to kill them, but it's going to hurt like crazy.
Right. Exactly. I mean, you have to, nudge them down the way. I mean, I've known a lot of people who lived with, and even in this part of America, just down below us in Tennessee, we have a lot of black bears, and so someone would do something similar, or they'd have like a cap gun or something that sounded like a 22 or whatever going off. They'd shoot it overhead. It didn't have any lead in it. It was not a bullet. It was just like a blank you'd see in a old cowboy film. And of course the bears would go, they're down the hill and gone, and no one got hurt, no one got scratched, and didn't kill the bear. So,
right, and I won't. And bear spray is illegal in my province, and I wouldn't carry bear spray anyway. Being no offense to anybody, I just think it's cruel because their eyes are burning, and I wouldn't like it, and I don't want to do that to another animal. So I love all animals, so it's better for me that I know how their behavior is and how I should act. And when it comes to bears do make me nervous. When I was in British Columbia a little over 20 years ago, and I was mauled by a black bear. And it wasn't my fault. The guy that I was with, just no clue whatsoever, and we were coming out of the forest after I was there for a week, and he was just got on my nerves really bad. Everything he heard was a Bigfoot, even if it was a tree squeaking, wolves howling was a Bigfoot. Everything was a Bigfoot. He did not know what he was doing. But on our way out, we rounded a corner, and there was a mother bear, and she had a couple of cubs with her. And he ran which is the worst thing you could ever do.
Never run
He
from a bear.
ran, and
Well,
exactly.
he became prey then, and then it's
No,
time to chase this
I
guy,
did.
right?
I did. He ran, and she came after me.
Oh
Yeah,
my!
I dropped to the ground and I played dead. And she rolled me around a few times, and she ripped my canvas backpack. She stuck her nails into my backpack and picked me up off the ground. She dropped me, and like I said, she rolled me around, but it was enough where I could keep my face down.
Right.
And
Wow.
then she went away. She went away, and I stayed on the ground. And she came back, it was probably about 5 minutes later, even though it seemed like forever. And she threw dirt at me, and then she left.
So the dirt thing. Well, first of all, like, I'm amazed you're here. I would have
Well, I actually
flipped clean
think if
out.
it was a grizzly bear, I wouldn't be here. But because it was just a black bear, I was lucky.
Yeah. Well, I mean, grizzlies are extremely aggressive, and they will eat you clean up. And
oh yeah, because the grizzlies are different than black bears. With black bears, you can scare them off unless they're in that zone where you were prey or whatever. But she had cubs, so I don't blame her for protecting her babies. I blame the guy that I was with.
Yeah, I take it you guys are no longer exchanging Christmas cards.
No, he doesn't do Bigfoot research anymore. And just for the record, when I found him, he was in a tree that a bear could have climbed, and I punched him in the eye.
Good for you.
And I'm not a violent person, but I was more mad because in my head I'm thinking that bear attacked me, and if I say something, she's going to get shot, and it's going to be his fault,
Right.
and all this. So I was more mad at him because of the bear.
Well, I mean, good Lord. I mean, you literally took the beating for both of you. And like you said, if he would have handled it differently, I'm sure the outcome would have been totally different. Let me ask you.
Because all we would have had to do was back up slowly back around that corner and make a bunch of noises as we went. And that would have given her time to take the babies out of harm's way.
Right.
But he didn't do that. He just saw her and freaked out. And he knew that bear was there because I saw him on the way in talking to the warden, one of the game wardens here, and the game warden told him that there was a bear with babies in the area, and he didn't say anything to me.
That's insane. Again, that's why you're like, I hunt alone. I see this. I see why you hunt alone. I'm not laughing about it, but I'm like, man, that's that could have been the end of you. Let me ask you something. Like I said, in the last few minutes that we've got, and like I said, we've covered so much. Touching on like all the different wee people and all the different Bigfoot type creatures and the puck wedgies and things like that. Which again, please go to stevieasher.com and look at these pictures. These are great. You're going to want to check these out. And again, thank you so much for providing these. I'll ask you too that we talked a little bit about different. I mean, we've covered a whole lot of different stuff off air. I know we talked a little bit about the Thunderbirds, which of course is a very large creature that's connected with a lot of Native American lore. King polar bears, giant snakes, all these different things. Do you want to touch on any of these? And obviously, 1 hour is not enough. I'm hoping to goodness that you'll want to come back on. Love talking to you, and I want to give all these subjects a whole lot of room. But is there one or two of these you want to talk on in the last few minutes that we got?
Before we go, I would like to say that the picture of the Bigfoot that I sent to you, this great big hairy thing, is not mine. It comes from North Bay, Ontario, which is further north than me, and that picture was captured in 2009, and he was eating apples. Well, he had stolen apples at the burial. Now, they're big up there, and I was up there last year, and I was lucky enough to find tracks to track one of these. Thunderbirds are still seen today as they are described. They seem to me to be an Argentavis, which is an ancient bird that was supposedly gone extinct, but they are still seen today from Alaska to Minnesota.
There was, and I'll just throw this in here just because I had David Dominy, who is a writer in Louisville, Kentucky, and there had actually been reports of, first they were saying, well, excuse me, first they were like, well, maybe it was like a Mothman. It says, no, the wing spread was too long. And people started doing some research in sort of the outlying countrysides and wooded areas and stuff, which did have a lot of Native American type mounds and things like that and burial areas. And that's when people started saying, this looks more like a thunderbird. And it's like, most people think, oh, well, that would make sense if it was closer to, say, the say where some of the reservations are or whatever like that, or maybe it was a area that was considered extremely important to the elders. But I don't know how much Louisville, Kentucky would have been like that. But did you find that these creatures, which, I mean, you're not saying they're like, are you saying that they are sentient in regards of having seemingly human or human-like intelligence? Or are they saying these are pure creature?
Which one, the Bigfoot or?
No, the Thunderbird.
The Thunderbird is a predatory bird. It's been seen scooping up deer in Alaska and carrying them off. These are giant birds.
Hold on a second.
Just
scooping up a deer.
Yep.
Deers are huge.
Deer are a good size, yeah. But they just come down and pick up the deer, and they're gone. And like with the Thunderbirds, and of course there is a difference between a Thunderbird and the pterodactyls that are also being seen.
Wow. So I mean, so as far as you know,
one has
they're
feathers,
both.
one doesn't. Yeah.
Well,
with pterodactyls, that they're gray and they don't have feathers. I know a lot of people get them mixed up, but we, as Native Americans, we know the difference between a bird and something that looks like a pterosaur. They look nothing alike.
Right. Well, I mean, I know like the pterodactyls would have like the elongated heads and more kind of not really bat-like wings, but it's not. Wouldn't look feathered. It didn't look fluffy. It looked like a membrane almost.
Yeah, and we're not talking like something like a harpy's eagle either. I know that there are big birds, and I saw an eagle at a zoo a few years ago. And forgive me, I don't remember the exact height. That I'm 5'5", and this eagle was almost as big and tall as I was. But these are, something with a 20-foot wingspan, and something that would tower over, 6, 8, 10 feet. And they're dark in color. So, yeah, they are very much like an Argentavis. Well, the full name is Argentavis magnificent, and anybody could look that up, and it's supposed to stink, but I don't think they know that.
My God. Well, see, that's the thing. I would go camping as a kid. Being in Western Kentucky, that was just sort of one of the things that you do. The more you're talking to me, the more I don't want to go camping anymore. I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with creepy crawly. But like I said, I will go in a house all day and deal with a ghost or knockings, and I've had things thrown at me, and which is a whole nother story. But things that can pick up deers, I mean, I'm like about 300 and some change, but I'm pretty sure it would at least fly me into the top of trees and knock me out.
Well, they could, and this is why that they were called Thunderbirds too, is because of their wing beats, which sounds like thunder.
Wow.
Because it would be the woof 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 sound. Yeah.
That's insane. Robyn, we're just about out. I want to make sure to remind people to please go to strangerealms.net. Robyn MoonShadow has all kinds of stuff, and her team and all all the people that contribute to that are incredible. It is a great site. Go there, like it, share it. I can't say enough good things about it. And if again, shameless promotion, please go to stevieasher.com. Look at the pictures. Check out some other shows of mine that's up there. And if you so wish and like a good scary story, please check out some of my books. And I want to know what you guys think. But Robyn, we're right about that time. And if you'll stick around just a second, I will talk to you just after this outro.
I absolutely will. And don't forget, I have a YouTube channel, and you can watch me do my thing. It's also called Strange Realms on YouTube.
There it is. Wow. Absolutely. And the crazy thing is that there's so much more out there that we just don't know about. And I'm glad that you guys have come along to listen to it. And I hope that the folks over on, Paranormal UK Radio have enjoyed it. I please hope that you will come back for the next installment of House of Asher. Until then, love each other, love one another. But don't be afraid to get a little afraid, because there's learning in this. Take care, everybody. Until next time.